Good morning. Welcome to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting of May 26, 2026. Those of you who can, please stand and join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on the agenda is agenda review.
There are no changes to the agenda, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Move the review.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Carries. All righty, let's move on to Judicial Ditch 33. Craig? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, I'll move the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Being there are no changes, I got a motion. We're ready to go. The purpose of today's hearing is to present the engineer's detailed survey report as well as the draft viewer's report for the determination of benefits and the draft viewer's report for the determination of benefits, seeking comments from all parties interested in the proposed improvement to Ditch 33. The order of business for this hearing is as follows. Staff will review the jurisdictional documents. We will hear from the appointed engineer and viewers, and then we will open the hearing for public comments. I'll ask Craig Ossison, Blue Earth County Drainage Staff, to review the jurisdictional documents.
Okay. Hearing notice was mailed out on April 30th, 2026. Notice was posted for this hearing outside the Blue Earth County Historic Courthouse. Notice of the public hearing is also published in Mankato Free Press on May 7th, 14th, and 21st, 2026. Detailed survey report was filed with the Drainage Authority and Region 4 DNR staff on June 3rd, 2024, and was updated on February 2nd, 2026. Landowner information meeting was held on May 11th, 2026. Commissioner advisory report from the DNR was filed with Joint Drainage Authority staff on July 2nd, 2024. Okay, and the next step is to actually read the DNR report into the record. This is from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Ecological Waters and Resources, Region 4 South Region out of New Ulm. Regarding the final engineer's report for improvement of Blue Earth County Judicial Ditch 33 updated FER option, thank you for the option to review the updated version of the final engineer's report for the proposed Blue Earth County Drainage 33 improvement project. This advisory report prepared on behalf of the Commissioner offers expert insights and recommendations in accordance with Minnesota Statute 103E.255 based on an April 14th, 2025 memo report. This plan lowers the drainage and coefficient to 0.5 inches throughout the system, down from the previously proposed 0.74 inches per day in upstream sections, adjusting the grade to achieve this reduction. A detailed survey of the wetland area has identified additional storage capacity, and the plan includes plugging the existing north tile of the Cease property in the upper to further retain water. InfoWorks ICM models for both the repair and the proposed conditions have been updated to assess project impacts on the Sewer River, while the overall estimated estimates remain unchanged, with modifications limited to adjusting the tile grades and plugging the existing main and intakes. Regulatory considerations, thank you for updating and incorporating the 11.8 acre feet of floodplain storage at the downstream end of the watershed. This feature is a valuable measure to mitigate increased flow rates to the Sewer River. A public waterway impaired by sediment due to altered hydrology and to minimize the potential impacts of downstream habitats. A permit may or may not be required for this project pending final approval of the proposed plan by the landowner and Drainage Authority. IHG has already submitted a public waters work permit application to the DNR, and our area hydrologist, Aaron Jensen's, will need to finalize the signed and dated plans before proceeding with the application review. For any drainage system requires inquiries, please contact us at Region 4 DNR at State of Minnesota. And it's signed by Todd Colander. Okay. Go on to the memo here. Blue Earth Judicial District 33 is a public drainage system established in 1918 with an approximate watershed of 896 acres. The system resides in section 22, 23, 26, and 27 of McPherson Township. A petition for improvement was received on December 6, 2021. A preliminary survey report hearing was held on June 21st, 2022. At the time, the Drainage Authority ordered a detailed survey report and appointed viewers for these proceedings. On June 3rd, 2024, the engineer submitted a detailed survey report at Drainage Authority and the Department of Natural Resources staff. All necessary reports, including the DNR Commissioner's final advisory report, have been filed with the Drainage Authority staff. On May 12, 2026, by signed order, the Drainage Authority set the date for today's hearing on the detailed survey report. The board will be considering 3 actions. The acceptance, number 1 is the acceptance and findings order for the redetermination of benefits. 2, the findings and order for the establishment of Judicial Ditch 33 improvement. And 3, if the improvement is established, approval of a financing resolution. At today's meeting, we requested the Judicial Ditch 33 Drainage Authority approve the draft redetermination of benefits, the findings in order to approve the engineer's detailed survey report and viewer's report, and appoint the engineer to prepare plans and specifications necessary for the bidding of the project and the approval of the financing resolution. I have one other item here. A reminder to the board, an internal county water storage funding policy was approved by the board in 2024. Dollars have been budgeted to support water quality and water storage projects on public drainage systems. The project meets the criteria of funding policy, and the drainage staff recommended providing $50,000 toward the JD 33 water storage project. An overall cost of the project is estimated to be $126,433. Final approval of the funding will be approved at the end of the year as part of the drainage system levy setting process. And that's it for jurisdictional documents.
Thank you.
I will move the jurisdictional documents.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll have ISG staff come up and review the engineer's detailed survey report. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning. All right, so we have, this is a summary of the final engineer's report, which is actually the second amendment for JD 33. There was a landowner meeting a week ago. Yep. And so we went over all of this, so some of the stuff we might go over fairly quickly. I'm Chuck Brandel, the appointed engineer. Jacob Mueller, ISG. So the watershed itself is 1,200 acres, shown in red, an all-tile system. There have been a couple improvements to the system, and what that has led to is that the outlet of the system is drastically undersized and blows out because there's more capacity upstream than downstream. And that area is in need of repair, and that was what was petitioned as part of the improvement. Originally, when we looked at the project, we did look at options to do the entire system, including maybe even potential storage in other locations. Landowners decided to petition just for the outlet of the system at this point. So, Mr. Austinson talked about the drainage process, but we're here at the final hearing, to get landowner feedback and to make sure we meet the requirements of the statute. Very quickly, there's been a lot of things that have happened with this project. Petitioned in 2021, the preliminary report, everything seemed to be going well. And then we've got some involvement from some outside agencies that petitioned for an EAW. That seemed to potentially dial up the scrutiny that we had on the project. That took some time. That petition was eventually dismissed. And then working through the process, the DNR did require a public works or public water work permit. That was submitted in protest by the board a while back and forth. We eventually got that permit and got a project that seems to be acceptable to everybody. But those delays did cause time and some additional cost. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Chuck. So just a little bit of background on the system quick. Again, we're in McPherson Township. The watershed is approximately 1,200 acres. Portions of it are exceedingly steep. There's about 80 feet of fall, and there's very heavy clay soils in the watershed, yielding the need for ag drainage. Established just before 1920, it was entirely a tile system at that point. It diverged from the natural overland outlet at that point, where they cut through kind of the bluff in the river effectively. It's a bit unique. So later in 1980, branches 5, 6, and 8 and the main line were extended, realigned, and enlarged. In addition, they put a pump station in at the time, which is a bit unique. Just 13 years later, in 93, the pump station was removed, and the main line tile was rerouted to reduce the need for that pump. In terms of repairs, there's been several tile ruptures near the outlet where we have several 20-plus inch tiles coming into a singular 18-inch tile at the outlet. That's going to be kind of a main focal point of this project, so there's been a lot of blowouts in that location. When we look at tile capacity, we're averaging about a 0.2 inch per day drainage coefficient. Upstream areas of the watershed generally have slightly higher coefficients, but at the outlet we're looking at about a 0.19. About 40% of optimum, and when you couple that with a very small tile draining a bunch of big tiles, creates a very pressurized scenario.
In a shallow location.
There's not a lot keeping it together. Looking at our proposal, there's a few elements that always drive a proposed design when we're looking at improvement for longevity and function. First is 5 feet of cover, improves ease of access for landowners to use the tile, and increases longevity for reduced compaction damage or anything like that to make sure the tile exhibits its full life expectancy. We look for a 1/2 inch per day drainage coefficient. It's the industry standard in southern Minnesota for our soil types. In general, it will drain about a 4-inch rain in about 2 days. We look at outlet adequacy. This was a very, very big theme of this project, making sure that there's no adverse impacts being imparted on downstream waters, especially public waters, the Lasur River in this case. Look at alternative BMPs or best management practices. This can be things like water quality inlets, things that are going to improve the condition of runoff, or things that are going to reduce the volume of runoff. So in this case, we're looking at wetland enhancement and storage. And finally, we look at the 103E.015 criteria, which is the environmental criteria, which kind of ties to outlet adequacy, and as well as finally the costs of the project and the benefits and the ratio, and making sure the project is economically feasible. When we're looking at this proposal here, like Chuck said, we're really only proposing to, or the petitioners petition for an improvement solely for the outlet of the system, where 2 public lines and a single private line converge together on a single 18-inch tile. It's at 26, 24, I believe 12, converging on 18. That would be replaced with a 36-inch tile and a 30-inch tile to gain a 1/2 inch per day drainage coefficient. This is kind of the final outlet for the entire system and a very constricted point right now. So this would seek to relieve that, improve drainage upstream, and reduce failures in the future. If you remember from the DNR's advisory letter, they commented on the alteration and reduction of drainage coefficient. So on the screen here, there was a very small portion in our original FER design where we had a very steep portion of 30-inch tile that exceeded our standard design goal of 1/2 inch per day. This was reduced downstream at the outlet by a shallower piece of tile that essentially limited it to a 1/2 inch, but due to the request of the DNR, we flattened this as well to achieve a 1/2 inch per day drainage coefficient to kind of align with their goals. The only reason it was steep in the first place was to increase ease of construction. It was a very deep cut and a very deep boring under a county road. When we're looking at proposed capacities, we've got 2 tables here. The top one was the original FER proposal. Again, it was about 0.5 inches per day with a very small stretch upstream at 0.74. That's been reduced to show 0.5 inch across the board.
Which is larger than any other capacity in the system. It
Yep.
would allow for potential future improvements if needed.
One of the other big aspects of this project, besides the tile, one of the reasons we were able to get the public waters work permit needed to perform the work as asserted by the DNR is the outlet floodplain storage / wetland enhancement. So between the PER and the FER, we performed more detailed survey, altered design slightly to maximize storage, increase water retention, and found that through that more detailed survey that it was slightly deeper than we originally thought. So we were able to kind of enhance that design a little bit to further meet the goals of the DNR. So a little bit on this, a project like this from the modeling results that we'll see in a little bit is under most scenarios to achieve an adequate outlet, this would be above and beyond what the engineer believes is necessary to and provides a level of storage and sediment capture that will benefit the LeSueur River. So in that, we believe that a project like this would be viable for some type of grant funding.
The structures are on the Say's property, and well, 2 years ago we met with him and actually got his approval. He signed a kind of preliminary easement for that. So if we get this approved, we'll finalize that. But we did have landowner support to do this, and he has been notified and I'm not sure if he's here, but contacted. So just to make sure that is something we will always want to check the box that the landowner is willing to have these structures on his property.
Yep. This is just kind of another brief overview. This was more so to walk through with the landowners, just to kind of explain fully how the project is going to look. The landowner had explained to us that he wanted an alternative access to the storage that followed the tile alignment, so we prepared this to accommodate that request. So that's going to be, everything down there will be accessible from the tile alignment. When we look at modeling, we use InfoWorks ICM. We use a wide array of data, standard data inputs, land cover, hydrologic soil data, rainfall data from NOAA, elevations from LIDAR, and a mixture of survey. We've performed a lot of calibration on this model over the last 5 years. We've worked very intimately with the DNR on this since about 2021, or 2022, I should say. So a lot of calibration has gone into that, a lot of vetting back and forth. And we use that to generate our proposed model. So when we look at this, from a standpoint of peak flow rates, the system's a bit unique in that most systems will have one outlet, a combination of tile and overland. This system here has essentially 3. There's an overland outlet that is in a different location from the tile. There's the tile outlet. And a bit more of a unique scenario for Blue Earth County especially is that County Ditch number 1 also provides an outlet for JD33 in the large low basin. You can see on the screen there.
Water would have to get pretty high, but there is
a subsurface tile there.
Yep.
So it's a bit more unique, so that also kind of added to some of the complexities when reviewing with the DNR. But as we review this holistically, both total outlets from the system and as well as outlets to the LeSueur River, we're holistically reducing peak flow rates received by any external outlet as well as to the LeSueur River cumulatively. When we look at volumes, this was another thing we reviewed with DNR in depth. Holistic outlets and to the LeSueur River, we're reducing total volume of runoff by an average of 6%.
So we did look at, as each project, we look at project costs, and because the system is failing, we're asking for the use of separable maintenance, which is the cost to repair the system. To repair the portion that we're discussing, it's $362,000 and some change. The improvement, which includes the floodplain storage, is $541,000 estimated. That's a net cost of $178,000. We did some research on the road crossing, and I believe the road crossing, the road was there prior to the system. So the road crossing costs are landowner costs. Typically, those are a public cost, but just aware for this project. That leaves a net cost, like I said, of $178,000. Benefits for the viewer's report was $304,000, leaving a net benefit of $126,000. So the project does meet the cost-benefit ratio, even with the additional storage that was added. So we did look at multi-purpose drainage management, which is a requirement. We have talked to the SWCD about funding the wetland portion. They did not have funding at the time, and our latest conversation, they did not have funding for that. So that is also why we've said this could be eligible for the funds that you have, depending on your decision. So, and then we did talk with landowners about many different options throughout the system. So, go ahead.
A little bit on the permit. So one of the big things that stalled the project between the generation of the final engineer's report and where we are here today is the DNR asserted that a permit would be necessary to perform the work. So we applied back in December of 2024 for that permit, and we received that permit in November of 2025. So just about 6 months ago, we finally received that permit after about a year of waiting. This allows us to proceed as planned, as we've currently described. There are contingencies with that permit. One of the biggest ones is the stream stability and erosion rate monitoring. They note if the erosion rates and/or entrenchment of the stream channel increase significantly downstream of the JD33 outlet, the responsible drainage authority must implement additional mitigating water storage projects. In effect, they can demand additional water storage if they believe that there is additional erosion occurring in the Le Sueur River as a result of the JD33 project until 2030.
And we did meet with the petitioners after this just to make them aware of this and make sure they wanted to proceed. And at that time, they kind of reluctantly said, yeah, let's keep going. So that's why we're here today. We finalized the report and turned everything in.
So a few things with that contingency, what we know. The modeling shows full reduction in both rate of runoff, volume of runoff, velocity of runoff, the shear stress in the outlet floodplain. So from a base standpoint, the modeling forms indicate that everything is going to be a positive impact downstream. Secondly, we've added storage to mitigate. That's going to reduce those peak flow rates even more and provide kind of that buffer in between the river and the system. Thirdly, comes to like kind of the realism of the likelihood that JD33 could impact Le Sueur River in any meaningful way in this location. The JD33 watershed is less than about 2.5% of the Le Sueur's watershed at this point. So it represents an exceedingly minor portion of the watershed and therefore is very unlikely to have any real impact on the character of the river in this location.
Especially with 30% reduction in peak flows.
Yep. So briefly going through environmental criteria, we reviewed all of the environmental criteria looked at under 103E.015. In general, this was looked at very in-depth after the petition for an environmental assessment worksheet. As we looked at that, we reviewed a lot of these things and compared those for that EAW. In effect, we are not altering any natural characteristics or enhancing a wetland. We're not increasing flow rates to the river, so we're not going to impact habitat down there. So we don't believe that from the analysis performed that there's not going to be any negative impact to the environment, and in fact, a bit of a positive one from the restoration of the wetland.
So based on that, what started out relatively small project got in a lot of scrutiny, but we have a permit, we meet the environmental criteria, we meet the cost-benefit ratio, so it's our opinion that the project is cost-effective, practical, feasible, and necessity, and should be considered for final approval. So, there's a lot more stuff that went on, but that's a high-level summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Okay, so now we're going to ask the appointed viewing staff to please present their draft viewer's report of the determination of benefits and the redetermination of benefits. Gentlemen. Good morning.
Morning, Ron.
Hey, Madam Chairman, Board. I'm one of the viewers that has looked at Judicial Ditch 33 Improvement Project. The other viewers are Dan Ruby and Bill Anderson. I won't go into the details as to what has occurred historically in the ditch system, but we'll look at just for the redetermination of benefits. The redetermination of benefits was completed and adopted by the board in 2007. But because the Attorney General's opinion is that when you do an improvement, you take the benefits of the existing system and the benefits of the improvement, you add those two together to do the future maintenance. So we couldn't take $2007 benefits and add them to $2026 benefits and have an actual distribution of the cost, because they wouldn't necessarily affect everybody equally. So our recommendation to the board was to do the redetermination to bring the values up to present benefit values, present market values. That is the only thing that has changed within the redetermination of benefits, is the market values themselves. We left the same watershed, we left the same benefit classifications, we left the same efficiency reductions that we made during that redetermination to show that the system at that time did not meet the recommended half-inch drainage capacity. So we had, like on the A acres, we only charged 55% of the potential benefit because it wasn't up to the half-inch capacity, and we knew that the ponding would occur at greater frequencies than if it was improved in the future. So we left dollars out there knowing that an improvement would be necessary to meet current designs. With the amended dollar values for both the lands and the roads, it brings the new recommended benefit total to $2,031,998.18 versus what it was in 2007. So that was the only thing that was done as to the redetermination. For the improvement, we then started with the redetermination and said, okay, that is the benefit of the current system. How much additional benefit is there by making the system up to the half-inch drainage standard? To do that, we still used the same benefiting acres, but what we looked at, instead of 55%, we said the acres with that drainage capacity will go up to 85% of the optimum benefit value, because it's a half-inch and some of it goes through ditch number 1. We didn't go to 100% for those lowest lands. We left some of that water and benefit out there because we know it doesn't all go into this system. So to go to 85% efficiency, we added an additional 30% of the potential value as the increased value of the improvement. The B values increased by 15, and we had left 10% on the C and D values because of that restricted outlet. So our recommendation for the improvement then is to take the same benefited acres. It's different, it's a separable part of the system, yes, but it is near the outlet that does control the discharge from the entire upper parts of that watershed. So it affects almost all of the same properties by increasing the capacity of the upstream system to that half-inch capacity. When we upped those, we came up with benefits, not to the roads, but to the lands of $313,940.18 additional improvement benefit to those lands above that. It's our recommendation for damages. There are about 3.87 acres of damage proposed within the construction of this, and our total damages are $2,222. For the tillable acres that will be disturbed, we used a value of $600 per acre as to the damage value. That's 1 year of crop loss plus some additional time to recapture the productivity within those lands. With that, we have benefited 922 agricultural acres within this watershed. There are some acres within what Chuck has that are tiled directly into the river, and those are not benefited by this improvement because their tile goes to the river. But we have 922 acres of benefit, and so it would be our recommendation that the board accept the redetermination with the updated market value considerations, and that they accept the improvement value, which is the change over and above what currently exists in the benefits to the properties within this Ditch 33 watershed.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Comments from the public are expected to be civil and respectful. Note this meeting is being recorded, and there is a 5-minute time limit. The county administrator will give you a 1-minute warning and let you know when you've used your allotted time. In addition, the board may restrict or limit time allotted to a person whose remarks are repetitive or not relevant to the matter under consideration by the board. Is there anyone wishing to make comment? Is there anyone wishing to make comments on Judicial Ditch 33, proposed improvements, determination of benefits, or redetermination of benefits? Okay, last time. Anyone wishing to make comments for Judicial Ditch 33, proposed improvements, determination of benefits, or redetermination of benefits? Seeing or hearing no further comments, I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and go to the board. Any questions or comments from the board?
I don't have any questions, Madam Chair, just a comment. I appreciate the people that showed up at the informational meeting the other day, and Jacob for doing your report. I think we got a few questions answered there. But otherwise, this is, just another long process to getting done, and we got through some big hurdles, but I think it'll be a good improvement to the system.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
If there's no other comments, I would accept the findings and orders for the redetermination of benefits.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So,
Then I would all, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, the next item would be the establishment of the improvement.
Yep, and I would move that.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
I would move the financing resolution.
You guys are moving me right along here. I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes Judicial Ditch 33 hearing. Thank you, everyone. You staying put there, Craig?
Yep, Craig, stay in put.
Abstaining for 64.
All right. Which one are we moving on to? 64?
64.
Yes.
All right, we got the wrong one. So welcome to the final hearing for the redetermination of benefits for County Ditch 64. The first item is an agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda for County Ditch 64 redetermination of benefits hearing?
No changes.
No changes?
No changes. I'll move the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. So the purpose of today's hearing is to listen to the viewer's report and receive comments from all parties interested in the redetermination of benefits for County Ditch 64. The order of business for this hearing is as follows. Staff will review the jurisdictional documents. We will hear from the appointed viewers, and then we will open the hearing to the public comments. So I will ask Blue Earth County Drainage Staff Craig Osselson to review the jurisdictional documents.
Okay. We had a landowner information meeting on May 11th, 2026. Hearing notices were mailed on April 30th, 2026. Notice was posted for this hearing outside the Blue Earth County Historic Courthouse located at 204 South 5th Street, Mankato, Minnesota. Notice of public hearing was also published in Mankato Free Press for 3 consecutive weeks, including May 7th, 14th, 21st, all of 2026. The Blue Earth County County Ditch 64 watershed is approximately 1,100 acres in size and is located in Sterling Township. On May 7th, 2019, the Blue Earth County Drainage Authority approved the findings and order initiating a redetermination of benefits for County Ditch 64. Viewers were appointed and ordered to create an updated benefits and damages listing for the viewers report. A copy of the viewers report for the redetermination of benefits was submitted to the Blue Earth County Drainage Management staff on April 14th, 2026. On April 21st, 2026, the Blue Earth County Authority approved setting a final hearing for the date of the redetermination of benefits for Blue Earth County Ditch 64 for May 26, 2026. We request the approval of the drafted or subsequently amended findings and order approving the viewers report, including the updated benefits and damages for County Ditch 64.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the jurisdictional documents into the legal record?
So moved. Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Craig had said, this redetermination was initiated back in 2019. The report itself was in draft completed by 2022, and because of COVID, for some reason it was not included with the other ditches that were done within that area at that time. So what we've done is we have done 64 independent of the other ditches, but they are interrelated. Ditch number 64 was originally established in December of 1920, constructed approximately in 1921. Since that time, there's been a couple of different proceedings in which parts of the watershed from Ditch 64 were petitioned or drained into Ditch 49. So those were taken into consideration in doing the redetermination, some of them pretty involved even in the courts. The system provides an outlet for lands in 17, 18, 20, 29, and 32 in Sterling Township, and outlets into judicial ditch number 49 as its ultimate outlet. There was an outlet benefit assessed against ditch 64 when ditch 49 was completed, the redetermination was completed for that ditch in 2022. We have submitted our report, which included all of those properties. We matched what we thought was the watershed that was assessed benefits in the ditch 49 proceedings, and came up with a benefited area of 1,011.5 acres with proposed benefits of land benefits of $2,130,515.26, road benefits of $89,925, for a total proposed benefit of $2,220,440.26. At the landowner meetings, it was brought to our attention that there were additional lands that were tiled into ditch 49 rather than into ditch 64. So from what was submitted originally, we have proposed some changes in the watershed, and as a part of that, we have indicated what additional benefit would be assigned to ditch number 49. There have been petitions filed to make those watershed changes and request the use of ditch 49 as an outlet. So what we have proposed then is a couple of changes to a couple of property owners. Neil and Shelley Grover, which is on the outlet end of ditch 64, with 64 being a tile system only. They have tiled most of their property, and their surface water goes directly into ditch 49. We have lowered our recommended benefits to only 2 acres within that parcel. Those 2 acres being those that are directly above the county tile, because it's removed the surface water flows and has helped put those lands underground. And it still does benefit those, plus the benefit of the tile. He's got 1,510 feet of tile within that. So we recommend that his benefit be reduced to that amount, which is $12,225 versus 80 to 90,000 if I add those up right, because those benefits will be transferred into ditch 49 if allowed to maintain the outlet that he already has there. Also on Gwendolyn Olson's, which is on the very upper end of the system, we would recommend that those be reduced to surface runoff benefit only. He has physically tiled all of that into ditch 49. It was done at the time that 49 was adopted, but because he didn't get notice, he didn't come and tell us that it was coming in, because he didn't get notice on 64. So what we would recommend there is that that be reduced to a half value for the D acres for the surface water accommodation, to accommodate the surface water that still does go down to 64 and affects that tile. Because a petition has been filed to use ditch 49 as an outlet, and that hearing has not been noticed, it would be my recommendation that the board could adopt this report subject to acceptance into ditch 49, and then not have to continue this hearing unless for some reason the existing tile that already is into 49 doesn't have capacity or is rejected from being allowed to be part of ditch 49. I will make a recommendation into the ditch 49 report to account for all of those acres that are tiled that way, recommend a benefit value for those, and an outlet fee associated with, if they would have been included in 2022, all of the costs that have occurred that they would have had to pay a share of if we would have known that back when we did 49. So it's my recommendation that you can adopt an amended report subject to the acceptance into ditch 49 with a new total benefits of $2,096,229.19. And that benefits 999 and a half acres. Because the system is all tiled, there are no buffer areas or damages that would be recommended as a part of this redetermination.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we will open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Comments from the public are expected to be civil and respectful. Anyone wishing to make comment? Anyone wishing to make comment on County Ditch 64, redetermination of benefits, final hearing? And the last time, anyone wishing to make comments on County Ditch 64, redetermination of benefits, final hearing? Hearing no further comments, I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. Approval of viewers' report for the redetermination of benefits. Are there any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions at this time, Madam Chair.
No questions. I would move to adopt the amended report, subject to the acceptance of the petition filed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, I guess I just would add, and we talk about it almost every drainage meeting, but this is the importance of the landowner meeting, so we get the input there. We can get it right before this hearing and go from there. So just want to thank the landowners that attended that meeting and encourage the landowners that don't go to landowner meetings. It's a lot easier to do it at that time than it is at this time. So the more landowners we have at landowner meetings, the easier the hearings become.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Greg.
So, thank you.
That's great.
That concludes 64. Well, good morning. Now
Ryan.
move on to County Ditch 15.
A few more drainage items.
So we'll open the Judicial Ditch 15 acceptance of contract hearing, and the first item is an agenda review.
No changes to the agenda, Madam Chair.
Move the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The purpose of today's hearing is to determine whether the contractor for Judicial Ditch 15 repairs has completed their contract in accordance with the engineer's plans and specifications. The order of business for this hearing is as follows. Staff will review the jurisdictional documents. We will hear from the appointed engineering staff, and then we will open the hearing for public comments. So I will ask Blue Earth County Drainage Management Staff Ryan Hineker to review the jurisdictional documents.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Notice was posted outside this historic courthouse building. Notice was also mailed out to folks on May 15th of 2026. Notice was also published as a public affidavit in the Mankato Free Press on May 15th of 2026. I have a quick memo. Blue Earth County Judicial Ditch 15 is primarily located in Lincoln Township. Blue Earth County Drainage Authority approved a public bid for repairs for Judicial Ditch 15, awarding the repair contract to Larson Contracting on October 8th of 2024. On March 6th of 2026, Drainage Management staff received the engineer's acceptance of contract report for the approved Judicial Ditch 15 repairs. All contractual work has been completed by the contractor. On April 24th of 2026, by assigned findings and order, the acceptance of contract hearing for Judicial Ditch 15 contractual repair was set for May 26th, 2026. Today, we request the Judicial Ditch 15 Drainage Authority accept the drafted findings and order approving the engineer's acceptance report for Judicial Ditch 15 repair contract, and order the release of any final payments due to the contractor and to pay damages as shown in engineer's acceptance report. That is all, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'll move the affidavits in the legal record.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll now hear from our appointed engineer from ISG.
All right, good morning again, Chuck Brandel with ISG. I've got a short summary of the closeout report, but I do have the entire report if we get into some detailed questions. Again, JD 15 is 3,168 acres. The repairs were done in the yellow, purple, and orange areas. The rest of the system is contemplating an improvement right now, which is not separate of this, but just for your information. So zooming in on that northern part of the watershed, the repair included the main line, which was repaired as a 24-inch line, branch 5 lateral A, branch 3, which is the short branch here on the south, branch 1 and branch 1 sublat C lat C sublat A, a small portion of that. So just cleaning up some areas that had some previous repairs and were not included as part of the improvement project also. On these systems, there was a repair hearing, and all of these were televised and were in need of repair. During construction, we did encounter some very wet, sandy conditions. We did have extra rock already in the bid for the project, but it was, I think, a little worse than anticipated, if we call it that. So there was some additional costs because of the poor soils. Ryan talked about the award in October of 2024. Substantial completion dates were in May of 2025. Construction got a little bit delayed because of some of those wet conditions, but everything did get completed substantially by that May 15th date. And there was some additional work and televising, and everything got buttoned up. In July, we did have some punch list items that we waited till the fall of 2025, till after crops were out. That's why we're here today and not last year, because we had some of those items to be finished up. The repair estimate was just under $400,000. We had an awarded contract of $336,000. After some change orders on some alignment and some additional rock due to the poor conditions, our total costs are $406,515.70. We've paid the contractor to date $377,000, $372,63, and they're owed $29,143.07, which is the retainage on the project. Larson Contracting has turned in all the final signed pay requests, their IC-134s, their 3-year warranty bond. And so we recommend accepting the work and approving final payment. We did include damages in the report. They're shown in pink, and I do have a handout for landowners. Most of them were compaction and not done during the growing season, but done in the fall and spring. But we do have a summary of those damages, which is shown here. We also completed an as-built, so that is ready and has been turned in for any future repairs to this system. So it's our recommendation that the project's been completed and the existing tile should be abandoned, damages paid, and the warranty period begin. So we recommend approval of the project at this time. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. So at this time, we'll open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you would like to make a comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Comments from the public are expected to be civil and respectful. And is there anyone wishing to make comment? Anyone wishing to make comment on Judicial Ditch 15 repairs? Nobody's moving. Last time, is there anyone wishing to make comment to Judicial Ditch 15 repair contract? Hearing no further comments, I'm going to close the comment portion of the hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This will conclude the Judicial Ditch 15 hearing. Right? All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Now, we are moving into County Ditch, which one?
Judicial Ditch 32, Madam Chair.
Judicial Ditch 32. Got it. I think. Go ahead.
Okay. Public bids were received from 7 contractors for the proposed repair work on Judicial Ditch 32 involving MnDOT Highway 30 crossing. These repairs include the installation of a new concrete culvert crossing pipe and new HDPE subsurface tile. Current repair plans were developed in cooperation with MnDOT engineering staff, landowner input, as well as county drainage management and ISG engineering staff recommendations. On April 28th of 2026, 7 public bid submissions were received for the repair work. The engineer's estimate for this proposed repair work is $120,628.50. The 7 submitted bids are provided in the table below, with the lowest bid submitted from R&E Enterprises of Mankato, INC, with a lump sum bid of $126,947.82. Based on positive feedback from references and R&E Enterprises meeting the bid specification requirements, ISG Engineering recommends awarding the bid to R&E for the lump sum bid of $126,947.82. Substantial completion date of September 15th of 2026 is set in the current contract agreement. And today we are requesting that the Judicial Ditch 32 Drainage Authority award the repair contract to R&E Enterprises of Mankato in the amount of $126,947.82 for the approved repairs for Judicial Ditch 32. That is all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Then we will move on to County Ditch 51.
Yep, last drainage item for you. County Ditch 51 watershed has approximately 484 benefited acres and is located in Ceresco Township. On May 8th of 2025, County Drainage Management staff received a petition for repair affecting County Ditch 51, a public drainage system. The petition was reviewed by the county's drainage attorney and found to be adequate for this proceeding. On June 24, 2025, the Drainage Authority appointed Charles J. Brano, P.E. of ISG, to create and submit an engineer's review report for the proposed repair petition. The appointed engineer filed the engineer's repair report with Drainage Management staff on December 23rd of 2025. Part of the repair plans include replacement of all subsurface tile and a reroute of branch 2. Part of the rerouting to Branch 2 included securing a new area of alignment for the tile and securing signed easements by affected landowners for the proposed reroute. Signed easements have been secured by all interested parties, with final signature coming from Blue Earth County Board Chairperson, pending the final acceptance of the repair petition at today's final repair hearing. All easements will be recorded at the drainage system expense after final approval by the Drainage Authority for County Ditch 51. Today, we request the County Ditch 51 Drainage Authority set a date of June 23rd, 2026 at 9 a.m. for the final hearing on the petition for repair for County Ditch 51. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Sounds good.
See you this afternoon.
Yep.
Next up is planning and zoning. Scott?
Morning, Scott.
Morning.
Yeah, Scott Salisbury, Property and Environmental Resources, and I'm just filling in for John today as he got called for jury duty. So,
Oh,
the item that we have today, Madam Chair, is the review of the Indian Island Winery permit. It's PC 29-12. And the winery operates under a conditional use permit that was issued back in 2012, which allows the operation of a farm winery and retail sales of beer as well. The conditional use permit includes two key conditions related to today's request. One of them is that any proposed change to the winery to add or modify food or beverage sales or to amend other services or activities offered shall be brought back to the Planning Commission and County Board for review. And then the second one is that the total gross receipts of sales of non-wine related items, including food, beverages other than wine, glassware, wine literature, and accessories, shall not exceed 35% of the total retail sales at the winery. And earlier this year, we received a request to allow charitable gambling activities at the winery, specifically pull tabs, e-pull tabs, and occasional bingo events in partnership with the Waseca County Trail Association. The winery has provided sufficient information describing the existing compliance with the 35% of gross sales for the non-wine related items. Back in 2025, it was just under 15% of the total. And so with this projection, along with the reasonable assumption that wine sales would see an increase with this activity, it does not appear likely that the non-wine related sales would exceed that 35% cap. Based on that, staff recommends or finds that a new conditional use permit would not be required with this proposal, as the proposal would be accessory to the primary use of the farm winery. And furthermore, the proposed activity is in compliance with the existing conditional use permit. And then the last finding there is that the proposal is allowable with the county board's approval of a gambling license and compliance with all requirements by the state. And at the Planning Commission in May, they recommended to also not require a new conditional use permit. And so staff recommends allowing the charitable gambling activities at Indian Island Winery under the existing conditional use permit. And then the board action would be a motion and vote regarding that request.
okay. Thank you.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
No, it's pretty straightforward at planning and zoning. Had a little discussion, but they run a great operation out there, and I think this will be a little bit more of an asset for them. So,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
And now our finance director, Candace.
Morning, Candace.
Good morning.
Candace Sonic, Finance Director. This morning I'm bringing forth some year-end audit adjustments for our 2025 audit. The first item would be I'm requesting approval of our operating transfers for year 2025. Now the transfers in and out are generally movements of funds from one fund to another, such as some examples are transfer of investment income from the general fund to other funds, different transfers such as abatement funds from the general fund to the public works funds. So those are some of those examples that happen. The majority of these were included in the adopted budgets. So there's some small changes. So just requesting approval on those items.
Okay.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Thanks for that clarification. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item would be approval of revenue and expenditure budget adjustments for 2025. We don't have much on the revenue side here. There is a change request for the general fund, and the majority of that had to do with the commodity rebate for the recycling. So that was just came in higher than was originally anticipated. So on the expenditure side of things, the general fund, the change requests there mainly had to do with recycling again, and then the pass-through of the local homeless prevention aid and state affordable housing aids that we've been receiving for several years, and we have finally paid those out in 25, so that was an adjustment for that. The Public Works Fund and the ditch fund always have some timing differences in the way of the construction projects that are done there, so that's what those changes are representing. And for the Building and Capital Fund, that had to do with additional expenditures in 2025 with the Public Works building, kind of the progress being moved up, where we had originally anticipated more being done in the future year, but so that was done very timely. So
Nice.
those are the changes requested for the revenue and expenditure budget adjustments.
Okay. Do I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and the last item would be budget adjustments for other financing sources and uses. And the main change there would be in the Building and Capital Fund, and that had to do with bonding, where we had originally, when setting the 25 budget, had $10 million in there, and we did decide to increase that up to the $30 million limit. So that was already had been approved by the board. So, and then the other change would have been to the ditch fund, where we are advancing funds between the capital fund and the ditch fund for internal financing. So,
All right.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Okay, now we have Human Services. Phil. I feel like I'm the come on down person.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Busy day
Phil.
today. Good morning, Phil. Madam Chair, I just have one action item for the board today, and that is an appointment of a member for our mental health task force. And she resides out of Commissioner District 4. Her name is Reagan Sorensen, and she does work in the service industry at the Carnival Autism Center, so I do recommend her appointment to our task force.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, 3 areas of focus today. First of those being our mental health center, and then adult mental health case management and children's mental health case management. This is my opportunity again to say I think mental health and chemical health, for all the resources we put towards it, is underrepresented from the problems in our community.
Right.
So they're intertwined in everything we do, but then there's all kinds of souls out there that aren't getting help, and so we see that pop up all over the place. And so I know you guys have a heart for that, and you've supported us tremendously, and we still struggle with volume management. So this is a lot about that. First area of information for the board, any discussion would be the Mental Health Center overview. And it is an area that I've talked to Josh about possibly doing a work session on. Frank Schwartz, Andy Carr lead our Mental Health Center now, and I would just to be able to have a more informal discussion about what we do and what we're about. Some of the more data points are in these slides here, so I'll run through them very quickly. Again, volume and ability to have a mental health center are very unique. There's a handful of these throughout the state. You'll see that our clinic serves psychiatric needs the most, and this is an area that I don't think we're duplicating in the community because it is such a hard kind of business to run. It's expensive to have prescribers, and you'll see that we serve, well, throughout the clinic, 1,100 people, almost 1,200, and most of those being psychiatric patients. The breakdown of the different diagnoses and how they fit into category, you all have heard about serious and persistent mental illness. We throw it out, but it is a very specific list of things that qualify under that. Each legislative session, they talk about maybe adding more diagnoses into that category, which is good in some ways and hard in the volume ways that I talked about. You'll see some of those diagnoses listed in the first bullet. And then SMI are the ones that aren't in that group, but still serious mental illness. And we do serve some of those folks. I would characterize our clinic as a SPMI clinic, and that is a hard population to serve. If you set up a private practice, you would not want your case mix to be all these folks. They take a lot of time. They're hard to serve, and you'll hear about our no-show rate. A lot of times they don't show up. And so we try to really partner with the individual and use a team approach in how we serve folks with SMI and especially SPMI. And then the other category is significant in that it brings in the chemical health part that isn't really a standalone in how we're configured in the state of Minnesota, but it is intertwined again in all things and creates a lot of complexity when people have mental health and chemical health issues at once, which happens somewhat often. I did think of telling this story briefly of, I was watching the NBA tournament, and one of the players on the Pistons, Duncan Robinson, they did a cutaway and talked about his brother who had schizophrenia. They didn't know until they're in their 20s, and that often is the case. They go to college and then it pops up. And he had auditory hallucinations, this brother, and was up and down the roller coaster ride. And, you know, Duncan said, I always looked up to him, and then it flipped because I made it into the NBA, and he was my biggest fan. He ended up committing suicide in the end, and it was a really hard story. And that's why I'm sharing it, because we can avoid the reality of this. The striking thing, the reason why I'm telling the board about this, you can, I'm sure, look up this story. It's very sad, but very interesting. And these voices that he would hear about harming himself or harming his family. And I think he fought against that and ended up, you know, deciding to just take his life was the process. They come back to the table, and it's like Shaq and Charles Barkley, you know, and I don't know, two others, but 3 of the 4 said, yeah, we've had suicidality in our family as well. And I'm saying 3 out of 4. And I just, for what I do for a living, to be shocked by how prevalent it is. So thank you for caring about that very much, and we certainly do. The next slide is about no-show rate. It's significant because when people don't show up, we don't know where they're at. We don't know how they're doing. This beating the average of 25%, which is high in a clinic like ours, by almost 20% is a good number. It's really important that people show up, and so that's a lot of the rapport we try to build with these folks we serve. You'll see 702 appointments scheduled per month, and about an increase of 100 each year, year over year. We do have a wait list for therapy that's about 2 months long, 14 people on that wait list. The next slide is some of the hopeful pieces. I think this next generation, not including myself in that, is their use of technology, and they're kind of smarts about that. So this is Andy saying, hey, we have the new dictation software that's AI-based, and it is, we've talked to IT about it, we're on solid ground here. Reduces time, keeps the providers caught up almost right out of the gate. So efficiency, last bullet, accuracy, and it says provider well-being. That I can say, back to the practice days, is that when you get behind, it's just like this heavy, heavy anchor you're dragging behind, and you have to just spend the time in the clinic catching up, and it's not the best quality. So to be able to have the AI listen to your session is what it does, and capture the notes, and all you have to do is review those.
Right.
It's great, great game. Also, the intake process that Andy and Frank and the Mental Health Center have looked at this, and what we're really using is more of an integrated approach. I had my physical, and I know Mankato Clinic went to this too, so I walked in and it says integrated healthcare. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So talked to the nurse about it a little bit, but we include the social worker for the initial interview on all therapy appointments, and for medication management, they talk to a nurse. What happens is you have a bond between that staff as well as the prescriber or the therapist, and they do feel like they're part of our clinic in a much more substantial way. So it's created some really good outcomes, and they're listed in the bullets under the second bullet. So I think it just really helps set a stage for the person themselves to feel comfortable, make sure we have all the history, and kind of get them ready for their appointment so that they feel comfortable before they engage that. So yeah, I think the alternative is more of a siloed approach where you don't work as a team when they walk in our clinic, and we prefer this teaming approach. And that's kind of it for the Mental Health Center. The second section is on adult mental health case management. Case management is a to me, it's the staple. It's even me being a therapist, is I wrap around case management. Case managers are the ones that know the person, come up with the individualized plan. And you'll see in our adult mental health side, we call this unit behavioral health because it does include the chemical dependency issue I talked about earlier. You'll see some of the volume issues year over year in the graphics, and 369 referrals last year. And we had an trending increase of the number of, adult mental health cases for case manager being 413 at the end of 2025. You'll see again listing out our SPMI focus. It is a voluntary service primarily. And I'm sure Pat, if I say anything or he has anything to add, we depend greatly on our partnership, both with his office and corrections, because some cases do cross over into the legal realm. And that would bring in the commitments that we have, because people aren't voluntarily wanting help, but they need it. And we need the court to be part of that process. Our goal in one of the, I guess, fourth from the bottom bullet is to live independently and to reduce hospitalization. So this is the pay me now, pay me later. Case management isn't cheap, but it does set this whole platform up for the individual for a place to pivot when they struggle. And I think our crisis response and mobile piece is part of that, and then case management is a core part of that. And so those are kind of our primary approaches, and what we're trying to do is keep people out of the hospital, because that's just frankly more expensive, and all you do is get them back to baseline. You're not really fixing anything. Whereas I think with the therapy and the case management, we can really build a new pathway. High level of turnover, this is Julie Moniz, and she's talking about that these numbers, it says we had 369 referrals, we have 413 patients, but behind the scenes there's this churn of people in and out. So the workers, our staff, are seeing a lot of people that come on, drop off, and that's not represented in these numbers. These are kind of the hard snapshot numbers. So the overall number is significantly higher. And then we have this every year. Some of us have been around quite a while, and every year you hear me say that the acuity and complexity is going up. But I really do need to attest to you all seeing it just one step closer. I'm not in the trench with our folks, but there's no doubt that the level of need is striking. It's pretty profound. And so we used to have some easier to serve individuals in our case mix, and now I would say most of them are just very difficult to serve. A lot of complexity. Adult mental health has 30 as the kind of target for case management. And, you know, just to paint their picture is every day you wake up and say, I have these 30 people on my watch. You know, and you think about a parenting role where I had 4 kids, which is a lot these days, but it's like that's a lot on your plate. To have 30 and wondering how are they doing, are they hanging in there? That's what they carry, at least, and we're slightly over that right now in adult mental health. The snapshots of data, you'll see that civil commitment then, so we go from voluntary, most of the folks we serve, to how many commitments we bring forward. The screening requests have blipped up, which I'm sure is no surprise to Pat either. We feel that. I get emails from the state when we have a new case pending, and it seems like it's daily. It's not, but it feels it's at least a couple of weeks is what it feels like. And so you see that blip up in 2025 of the civil commitment screening request. Down on the left side of this slide, it talks about pre-petition screening, and that's what it's called when somebody has concern. And the first step is to do a pre-petition screening where we see what's going on and see if it's the criteria is met to consider a commitment, depending on what is going on there. The middle box, by type, the screening types, you'll see obviously mental health is the highest one just because that is kind of the core of what we do, and then followed by, I'm going in reverse order, but mentally ill and chemically dependent. You know, there's 100 of our 105 folks that we serve. So that is our target, and I think we hit that target quite well. I maybe won't go through the breakouts here. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. That final box of kind of what's the disposition and what happened, you'll see a number, 44 screened out. And I will say that experience is that we know the individuals, they might not meet criteria for commitment. That doesn't mean they go from that to nothing. They go from that to a lot of need and often right back through the door again, and we look at them again because something else happened or something else is going on. So it's a relationship we have. Next slide, the full commitments. So now we're into the breakout of what kind of commitments in that part of the population that we serve, and the type for full commitment, you'll see is mostly mentally ill, followed by, again in reverse order, mentally ill and chemically dependent. We had 25 full civil commitments, even though that catchment was a big number. We scale it all back down to how many fully got committed. And then we have this other finding by the court, a stay of commitment, where we present the case, and it's really a hybrid option. And so what that is that you will not be committed at this time if you follow through with X, Y, and Z. So that's a stay of commitment. And if they don't, they come right back, and usually the commitment is the next course of care. So that is almost half the cases where we have a stayed commitment, and really they tip them back to the social worker saying, make this work and in the community. And I think it's a great option, but you can imagine some of them are successful and some aren't. Clubhouse, I think the board's familiar with the purpose of the clubhouse. You will see that statutory language in the first paragraph about, again, statutorily mandated for us to design a system for the SPMI population, so it's very specific. You'll see our clubhouse was open 360 out of 365 days. It is a shared model where the consumers are also the ones that will open up the club and be part of operating the club, so it's their clubhouse. And we administrate it over the top, but they take a lot of responsibility for that. You'll see the slide, or the graphics on the utilization, total membership at 158, and 39 new folks that joined in 25. And then you'll see the number of times that they participated in activities at the clubhouse at over 4,000 actual visits. So that is it for adult mental health. And finally, children's mental health, very similar, another mandated service that we must do. There is some difference because we're dealing with minors and parents, so the caseload size, which I don't know that there's science behind it, but 30 for the adult and 15 is the goal for the kids population, because you are dealing with the schools and the child and the family. So I think that's a lot of the logic behind that. And you'll see our graphic is we're at 18 now, and that's because the board, you'll see back in 23, did add staff, and so we're still over that kind of target goal, but it's more manageable than what was 23 in 2023. So most of our child mental health is voluntary. Parents are involved. Obviously, the parallel to commitment is CHIPS, where we can go to court and say this child needs intervention. So we work with Pat's folks on this, and that is usually about a placement and stability, harm to self or others, a high threshold for the placements that we do. Obviously, we cross over with corrections. They can bring a child to court because of a violation or a charge that they have. And so that's another avenue. And then parents can place kids themselves if they choose to as well. So there's kind of 3 pathways there about placement, which is, of course, a big deal to us. And then you'll see the slide on our revenues. The board's aware that we set this as a goal, and our target was to make sure we visited with our folks 95% of the time. I will say 100% is not realistic, even though you'll see some 99% on a given month, just because we can't find the people. You knock on the door and they're not there, and it's like, how many attempts will you make before you try to get with them? So this is just a huge number. I'm sure we would compare very favorably to any county in the state with that kind of numbers, but it's interesting if you set your mind to it, if you talk about it. Staff are on board, and they've carried a huge part of that, and so I'm very I know Commissioner Vance always talks about they're my heroes because they really just stand in that trench and they don't really complain about anything. They just do the work, and it feels like, you know, kind of on this island we call community, and they are just running around the island trying to help people. So it's something.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. Yeah. So does a voicemail trail consider a contact? I call you, you call me. We never talk, but we have a good conversation on a voicemail.
This is so good, Commissioner, because it's so interesting. It's like, well,
that happens a lot.
It's complicated. It does obviously count for the bigger goal of coordination. It's better to try to talk to somebody on the phone than not at all. Okay. So I'll say that. I believe I'm saying this correctly, that on the adult side it counts, and on the kid side it does not count. But we still, as you can imagine, the texting runs wild with the kids, and so the way we get a hold of them, and actually the parents now too, is through texting. Yeah. But that doesn't count as a hit.
Oh, it doesn't?
I believe I'm right about that with the kid side. On the adult side, I think it does count. So I'd have to be fact-checked on that one, but it's a great question.
Interesting.
Well, and this is the complexity for me not to be sure. It shows how it's so complex when you start to unbundle things, and then staff will all the time say, no, that's not how it works. Or even in my discipline of therapy, it's like, oh, no, you can't get paid for that diagnosis anymore. I'm like, what? So things change, and it's hard to find the logic in it at times. But it's just a great question. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah. And then the accomplishments, I won't go through those, but they're situational. They're individuals that I think are represented in these bullets, but we added a program coordinator, and we appreciate that. That has worked really well, that type of role throughout Human Services. You'll see some of these kids went from struggling to going to college, and the one individual in the middle part of that paragraph was in placement for 2 years. I mean, some of these kids are struggling mightily, and really had a good turnaround and got out of placement finally. One, I said child, but they're young adults, own their own business. And then that last bullet is some of that familial stuff that they said, my whole family has never had credit enough to get an auto loan, and I was able to qualify for one because of my job. And it's just like those little things aren't little, you know, and so it's really cool. Yeah. I think that's it for me. Thank you for your.
Thank you.
He's got a lot of stuff going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Move on to administration, Josh.
All right. First, we have the minutes to approve.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have the bills for the 2 weeks.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, next we have the Human Resources agenda that are all informational for this week. First, we have the transfer of our PER director to the Deputy County Administrator position. And then also we have the recruitment initiated for the Property Environmental Resources Director. I have a resignation for a Clerical Specialist 2 in Human Services and recruitment initiated for that. That is within the eligibility end of it. So this is, I know we've talked about when there's a position gone, we look at whether we're freezing or not. We have looked and reviewed this one in the last year. This is why this one is coming back right away. This is one that does a lot of that coordination for the eligibility in the K-states. Also have an employment of an assistant county attorney in the civil juvenile end. And also resignation of county drainage systems coordinator, and then recruitment of that position, and then the employment of a part-time bailiff as well. And that would conclude that report. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Josh?
No questions.
All right, we'll move on to commissioner reports. Kevin?
All right, since our May 12th last board meeting on the 15th, we had Gabirba policy meeting on the 18th. I participated in the NACO Ag Policy meeting, attended the ISG Drainage Conference on May 20th, 21st. May 21st also attended the NACO RAC meeting. Memorial Day services yesterday, and then this morning we had a JD1 meeting for repair approval. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Yep.
My report is relatively short, Madam Chair. I was at MICA. Mark and I both drove up there and went to an in-person meeting instead of calling in. The group's doing fairly well. Nathan up there is just a sharp guy. He does a really good job for MICA. Had our MVAC meeting. Everything's going very well there. And Memorial Day services, I got over to Nicollet County, to Kearns, and then I was at Eagle Lake and Stoltzman for the Vietnam one. And then the county ditch, or the JD one this morning. That's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, I'm going to go back a few weeks since I wasn't here last time. So after our April 28th meeting, we had Bob's retirement party, and then that evening I attended a homeless discussion up at MSU. This is Centennial Student Union. I did the WIR conference, and we'll go into May, and I did a GMG chamber lunch for the data centers. That evening I also attended the National Emergency Service Week at the Mayo Clinic ambulance area. On the 21st, I did NACO RAC Zoom. And that's about it for me.
All right. Mark?
I also attended Memorial Day services yesterday. Did the Korean War, the next one, right? Vietnam vet also, and I attended the Kearns one with Kip. Almost forgot about that.
Okay.
I just had the, Bob's retirement party, then May 13th, we MICA, like Kip mentioned, and we're there. And then, yesterday, at Stoltzman, for the veterans. Yep, that
Great.
concludes.
All right. On the 13th, I met with Scott Morrell, what Josh and I did to talk about our upcoming meeting. On the 18th, the AMC end of session update. The 19th, I had the NACO regional meeting, and I went to the CADA open house. On the 20th was the GMG data center informational luncheon. On the 21st, I had TDS, the NACO Rural Action, and the NACO Policy Insider. And that is the end of my report. So, we're done for today, right?
Yes. Let's go
Move to adjourn.
So I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned.